Okay, today on the podcast, I'm joined by Lon Haenel. Been following him for a while on LinkedIn, and a mutual friend has talked very highly of him. He's the publisher of Decorah News in Decorah, Iowa. Also runs Local News ROI and is chief client officer at newspaper subscription services. We can talk about all that stuff. But Lon, great to see you again, or talk to you again for the first time. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't know what else I'd rather want to be doing on this cold, about to snowy day here in southern Wisconsin, but thanks for having me on the show, Paul.
Yeah, no problem. It's funny. I just had somebody from Wisconsin yesterday on the show in Madison. It's nice and sunny here. Don't mean to rub it in. We got the sunshine in Colorado. I kind of start every podcast the same. If you could just kind of give us a little background on, talk a little bit about your background, your career in local media, and just kind of set the stage.
That's a great question. I'm kind of a mutt when it comes to the local news industry. I've done a little bit of everything, and I started out in 1997 working for a company in southern Wisconsin called Bliss Communications. It was a family-owned local news and radio conglomerate. Bliss-owned radio stations, shoppers, newspapers, and they had websites at the time that I started in '97. But little did we know in '97 what the great digital wave would be or what it would look like here 30 years later. Started out selling advertising, then got invited to come over to the consumer side of the operation in 2004, and I worked as home delivery sales manager, and then on up to circulation director, circulation VP, digital VP. I was lucky enough to be called on to start that company's first digital services agency. So that was a lot of fun. And then a few years later, in 2015, I got recruited to go work for Gannett in the Northern Illinois market. So that was a Rockford Register Star, and the Freeport newspaper as well. And a few years later, there was some reorganization, and my family and I headed out to Columbus, Ohio. And I worked at the Columbus Dispatch in similar function. In 2019, I struck out on my own. I started Local News ROI, which is kind of a cute little story. I was convinced what the world needed at that time was another audience or consumer revenue consultant. What I found out is that it didn't. What it really needed is someone that could really push the throttle to the floor and generate new subscription orders for newspapers. So to all my friends out there who are consultants or fractional CMOs, don't take it personally, but just for us, it worked well in our business. And that was about 7 years ago, and we're still thriving. We're still growing. We have great clients that we're working with and for at Local News ROI. And then about the same time, I went to work with a friend of mine, Frank Vega, at Newspaper Subscription Services. And in that business, we provide low-cost sales and marketing solutions to audience and subscription marketers, consumer executives, and for the most part, we are integrated with most systems already in use. So we just kind of fit nicely on top of or beneath their tech stack without a lot of problems or integration issues. So that's an exciting business. But we are very excited about Local News ROI. I'm sorry, DecorahNews.com. Too many brands floating around in my head, because it was a model that was started. Can you believe 25 years ago? The brand will be 25 years old on tax day of this year, April 15th. We have only been the stewards for the last about 3 years. We purchased it about 3 years ago, and the founder who sold it to us, his wife told him it was time for him to retire. His name is Paul Scott, and he's still local in Decorah, Iowa. So if you're listening, Paul, hello. Thank you for selling us your great business. We're having a lot of fun running it. And its model is 100% advertising based, although, and maybe we can get into this on the podcast, Paul, maybe we can dig into sort of like where we see things going, what we see the future being in local news, and how readers and how raving fans of the product we put on the street every day, albeit digital only, web and mobile, how they can contribute and take a greater stand in growing the community. So that, like in, I don't know, 8 minutes, is a real quick nutshell of my background.
We're under seven, and that includes the intro and everything, so it's not that bad. So I want to talk about a bunch of that stuff, but you're kind of talking about Decorah News. Forgive me if I'm wrong. I think you're the one I was talking to who said you can't prove it, but you might just be like the oldest online only news source, and I can't remember exactly how you phrased it, something like that. And you're talking about how it's 100% advertised based. So, this
Yeah.
show is about business models for local media and stuff. So I'd love to dig into that a little more. Decorah News.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, that's a lot of fun. When the founder had the business, his little brand promise or slogan was first, free, and fast. That I think that served him well. When the business started 25 years ago, that takes us back to 2002, and I'm pretty safe, although we haven't had our people dig in and vet it. Is that we are likely the oldest digital only news provider, local news in the state of Iowa, because I do know the other two or three, and those are all relatively newer. And one is actually on a college campus or in a market that serves a major college campus in the state of Iowa. So, yeah, so I feel pretty good about that, but please don't quote me on that. But what I think we're doing isn't just like, oh, we've been around 25 years. I know you publish news, digital and mobile only. You've got to remember 25 years ago in the year 2002, print was still very strong relative to today's strength in terms of maybe revenue per reader, revenue per advertiser, revenue per household, however you want to break it down. Definitely economically, it was more feasible. So when DecorahNews.com started, it was really in an era that is unlike today. And if you believe, you don't have to believe it. I've lived it, and I've seen the downturn, and many of us that maybe listen to your podcast have seen it, have felt it, and had to manage around the decline. It's real, and it's not always a lot of fun. However, I think when we start looking at the future and how trends are moving, we can either fight it and say no, print must live forever. And I'm a guy that loves print. It kills me
Yeah.
to say this. I have colleagues, and they won't retire until they've saved print, and they may never retire. Um, and I like to take a reasonable approach. I mean, I appreciate print. Of course, I consume it in my everyday life as a consumer, but I'm also realistic that the appetite for information has moved online, and it's easier for us for a digital only to say, hey, we're fully digital only because we've always been digital only. I caught your podcast with Gordon Burrell, and he referenced, I think it was Clay Christensen in his book, The Innovator's Dilemma.
Hmm.
I've had a chance to hear Gordon speak. I've had a chance not to hear Clay speak, but another gentleman who was affiliated with him, and I forget his name right now, and he spoke in Chicago, Washington, D.C., and so forth. And I just really learned a lot from practitioners of the innovator's dilemma, because there's a certain amount of letting go you need to do when you innovate. Because yeah, you've got all of your core revenue, core maybe margin tied up, or not tied up, but resource to print. So how are we going to grow this new shiny thing in the light of our cash cow beginning to die? So we really don't have that restriction. It's kind of interesting in our local media market. We have a once a week local print newspaper called the Decorah Leader. They were recently purchased by a family in Iowa that owns several weekly newspapers across Iowa. So they're more of a chain, but they do a nice job. And I continually reinforce with my staff, there are things that we can do that they just cannot do. We can disseminate news as quickly as we want, right? We don't,
Hmm.
their paper comes out on Thursday. Most, weekly rural papers come out on Thursdays, I believe, maybe Wednesday sometimes. But if you're once a week, rural, you're either Wednesday or Thursday. We come out 7 days a week, right? So we're just like the grand old days of the newspaper where everybody
Yeah.
got a 7 day newspaper. In fact, we're even better than that because we can push things live at any time, 24 hours a day. We can put a breaking news ribbon, or a tag as we call it, on the story to get it to pop up to the top of the stack and grab major attention when eyeballs come to the site. We're able to tell stories with photos, photo galleries, videos, and yet to come audio formats. We're intensely interested in the audio format of storytelling and newsletters to bring folks back in. Maybe disadvantage that we have is we don't drop on someone's porch or in someone's mailbox when we're ready to read. You have to love the brand enough and be dedicated and committed enough to continually come back.
Mhm.
We did a recent survey over New Year's weekend, and our readers told us overwhelmingly that they read us every day. And what a compliment to not
Yeah.
even have a print product that we're dropping on the street. In our market, we'd be out of business if we tried to publish a print newspaper every day. You can do it once a week. Our competitors doing it, and they're doing a nice job with it. We are, however, publishing local news content 7 days a week. Sure, some days are better and bigger than others, but we are publishing local news 7 days a week. And I just feel like we'll be in good shape as long as we can continue to leverage those real distinct, what I like to call blue ocean advantages. Is what can we do that nobody else can? And for that reason, that gives me a lot of faith and hope in the future. We are still in the local news quagmire, so to speak. Whatever Google and Meta is doing to our larger newspaper colleagues out there, we also feel that. We feel the fracturing of content online. We know what AI is doing in terms of summarizing results, putting it at the top of the thing, and therefore maybe fewer and fewer people actually go to the source content that's behind that URL. But yeah, that's a little bit about Decorah News from a high level, since you asked.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny when you're talking about print. I'm probably the very, very last part of a generation that even like remembers print. I'm 40. I'll be 41 next month, and I have very fond memories of the Rocky Mountain News, Denver Post, where I grew up, and especially like the Sunday editions and everything. And yeah, I think it's obviously going down print, even though it's a great product. There are some cases where I see it working, just I wouldn't know about it without being talking to people on this podcast. I had lady Claudia Amaro in Wichita, and she started a uh Spanish first publication in Wichita for the Spanish speaking population there.
Oh,
And
cool.
she started as an online radio station and then website. And then the Spanish speaking population, they just want print. They want it like a newspaper. So she actually
Yeah,
expanded to print. But
yeah,
then, like the guy I was talking about in Madison yesterday, he's at an alt weekly, and they have their place in print where it's really
yeah,
valuable still.
yeah, yeah,
Where you go, we kept joking on the show where you go into Chipotle, and there's
yeah,
always like one of those in there. But
yeah.
agreed. But it's funny, you kind of talked about the decline of print, and you run a business that works with newspapers. I want to touch on, you talked about chasing the blue ocean stuff
Mhm.
that Decorah has. Can you talk about for Decorah and also like for clients you work with? What are you thinking about when you talk about that? You talked about audio, but what are you thinking about in terms of
Yeah,
yeah,
that's a great question. But what immediately comes to my mind is being able to use the innate advantages of being a web and mobile local news publisher. And it's not, in a broad sense, like a national market or even a regional market. We have to have, we've got to have like global tools, but we have to remember to focus those tools on a very local market. Our local content plays best, hands down. When we analyze our content, it's obituaries, letters to the editor, local news, crime courts and cops, sheriff's office reports. Um, we had a county seat for Winnebago County, Iowa. So of course we have the courthouse, and we tried a new storytelling format as we covered that trial, and it was more of a live blog format. Why do I bring that up? Well, I bring that up because when you're in the print world, you can't live blog. It's I guess for your listeners out there that maybe I could give a little more clarity around what is it like. What's like when a sports department or the athletic covers a sporting event, and for each like big play, they add to that blog, and then
right.
as you read it, you can just read the blog, which is technically words on a page, and you can get a gist of what's going on. But for those people that are super interested in it, there was no live TV access, as there are many murder trials across the country. So this was really their best connection if they were interested in the case. Now, if they just wanted to read the story at the end of the day, if that was good enough, fine, they could read that. But again, our commitment to leveraging our tools in the digital and mobile space to the best we can, really dictated that we have a reporter. His name was Alex. He did a wonderful job covering that murder trial, and got we've got all kinds of feedback that people loved the creativity and how we tried something new and how we could deliver updates about what was going on in that courtroom in real time.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah, like a murder trial, there's nothing, when you think of other I'm in the podcast space, I work with local news people, but, I pay attention to the broader ecosystem. True crime is
Yeah,
it just hooks people. I don't know what it
yeah.
is. It's just like
Oh
my
man, we
wife
we
is
love
addicted
we
to it.
love that
Yeah.
podcast. Oh my God, it's
Y
phenomenal. Yeah, they're like,
y
what are they, like 2 hours long? And you're
yeah.
like hooked all the way through.
Yeah, my wife is a bit of an addict with that stuff. She listens to murder podcasts all night and wonders why she
Yeah,
can't sleep, but
yeah.
I won't tell her what to do. But yeah, no, it's also important, from a local news and information standpoint to have that stuff getting out there and everything. Let's talk a little bit about local news ROI or NSS, newspaper subscription service. They're separate, right? They're kind of separate
Correct.
things.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about local news ROI? It's a great name. I mean, it's right there in the name. What are you doing for folks? You said you started out thinking the world needed another consultant in the space, and then maybe
Yeah.
not. But what do you do, like, to
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
create
It was
ROI
it
for?
was it was kind of funny. Back in 2019, I was doing what many um, new consultants do, kind of have like the headlights in their eyes, is they start working their warm contacts. So that's what
Mhm,
I did. And I received a lead, or I generated a lead for a newspaper in Findlay, Ohio, and they appeared to have a lot of interest for general consulting services. So I drove down there. This is still when we were in Ohio. So I drove down to Findlay, and I met with the marketing director and the circulation manager, and they really liked everything that we had to say on sort of a high level. Like, oh my God, this is going to take some time to materialize. But
mhm.
they just kind of looked at me, and they said, "Do you know of anybody who could go out and sell newspaper subscriptions for us?" I said, "Oh, you mean like kiosking?" Right? That's what the industry refers to as kiosking, like at supermarkets, county fairs, retail, Walmarts, et cetera, right? And I
Mhm.
said, "Yeah, yeah, we are able to do that for you." And I'm like, "Well, maybe this is my aha moment, right? Maybe what the world needs is not, like I said in the intro, not another fractional or another consultant. Maybe they just need someone, a practitioner, so to speak, that can keep their foot on the gas and generate quality newspaper orders on the print side." So that's really where what local news ROI today was born. It was kind of built in that moment of necessity for a client who didn't really need to tell them what to do,
Right.
consulting. What they needed numbers on their books, right? They needed that influx of new subscribers, And so then with that new aha moment, then I began testing that concept with other clients I had either previously called on for consulting or about to, and it just really took off. This is what I found is what clients were interested in. And they say that about running a business and how you treat customers. It's like, if you just wait for your customers to tell you what they want, they'll tell you, and then they'll buy it from you.
Yep. Yep, I agree with that. Well, so say like if there's somebody listening who might be a potential client or something, and they're like, "Yeah, that's what I need." Like, what tips would you give them if they want to maybe implement it themselves, or what would you come in and do? Like, what have you learned, like doing that
I'd say, oh,
actually?
geez, call us as soon as you can. We'd, we,
Definitely,
we'd, we'd
definitely.
love
I'll
to
link to
learn
all that.
more and see if there's a fit. Yeah. So
Yeah.
here's what I've learned about that business really on my own over the last 7 years. When I was on the other side of the desk as Circ VP and Circ director, I kind of had an opportunity to do a lot of trial and error. Is number one, it really matters how you sell it. This sales channel that we call kiosking over the years has developed a black eye in the industry. And the reason for it is the retention on the back end has been, can I say crap on your show? It's
Yeah,
been crap.
I don't censor it. Yeah, that's fine.
You know, I believe the running average, what I've heard from other clients, is around 19 to 20% still active after the first year. And for what firms charge to create orders, it's all done on a cost per acquisition standpoint. It's really hard to make the numbers work if only 19% are active after the
Right,
first year. So,
right.
so we've developed some processes both in terms of the verbiage in our sales pitches, the method of how customers are enrolled, and then the method of payment. All of our enrollments are done on Easy Pay, and they're all done at point of sale. So when that customer is signed up, we have the automation, and this is actually a tool from NSS that we use, which is the kiosk automation platform. So kind of easy for me because I'm involved in both businesses, so we're using the technology of one business to help the other business in this case.
Hmm.
And folks like that. All of our payments are credit card. We really don't do prepayments because what's important here, why don't you do many prepayments on? Well, the danger or the risk with prepayments is when that first term ends, let's say it's a 13-week term, what does the newspaper do? 30 days before that, they send out a bill, and they just hope that the subscriber renews. And when they don't, they stop, and that's now one unit of churn. Where on Easy Pay, we're gaining the commitment up front for that customer to go on a recurring billing cycle, whether it's ACH out of your checking account or MasterCard, Visa, Discover. So we find with that process, um, we're around 40 to 41%, and that's pretty much across all of our markets,
Hmm.
still active after the first year. At 40% still active after 12 months, our model works brilliantly. Like, you can't screw it up. I mean, you first call us. Once you call us, you can't screw it up after that.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So in our promotions, we incentivize the consumer with a small gift card, and the gift cards are able to be used at the location that we're at. So if we're at a local supermarket, it'll be that local supermarket's gift card. If we're at a retailer, it'll be that retailer's gift card.
Hmm.
Not much, usually $5 to $10, but it's something to sweeten the deal and to help close the deal. And like I say, the system works pretty well. When we put a team out, what kind of results do we get? Volume results. We're normally out for a weekend. We'll work a weekend at a time, and then we rotate to another market. And in a very strong performing market, we'll write 225 to 250 orders. In a larger market. In a smaller market, we could be 60 to 80 orders in that same period of time.
That's awesome.
So yeah, that's really the secret. We've got a great team that's got a ton of experience. Are they good at sales? Absolutely. But even better, they're good at the quick order, taking the quick sale. And believe it or not, when someone's walking through that door at the local supermarket, probably the last thing they had in mind was they were going to buy a subscription to the local newspaper that day.
Right.
You know what they were
Right.
thinking? They were thinking eggs and bread and cheese and so forth, right?
Hmm.
Um, if we can derail that and say, hey, you need a subscription, and by the way, here's a $10 gift card if you give us a try again. And say, okay, how much is it? We tell them. We also provide them with a free copy of that day's newspaper. And that can be a very good deal maker at the same time. And it's nice for the grocery manager and the retail manager because oftentimes their bonus or incentivized on gift card sales. So we're
Right.
helping them by purchasing, a whole glut of gift cards at once.
That's a great idea. That makes a lot of sense. Who forgive me if you said this in there and I missed it, but who's a good fit to work with you? Like, I have people listening to the show that work at the Gannett's and McClatchy's of the world, but also people that are like a one person newsletter or a
Yeah,
smaller
yeah,
team or something like that.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah,
where
yeah.
does it make sense to kind of
Yeah,
talk to you
for
about it?
for that business in that channel, the mid-sized markets, still make a lot of sense. If you have a print newspaper product that's delivered, I mean, even as few times as 2 to 3 days a week on up, we've
Okay.
done really, really well. And just because you're a small market, think for a second that you're not a candidate to grow a subscription volume with this type of channel. In markets that, let's say, haven't done it in a while, or maybe you've tried it with one of our competitors and you felt like you got burned and it's been a couple years. Great time to reassess and give it a try again. Except this time, give us a call.
Of course.
Um, uh, Also, I guess, archetype of success would be what have you recently done with a contraction in your market? If you've contracted days of the week or you've raised the price, we say we don't like to come in right on the heels of that, but 90 days, let's come in 90 days after you've had either of those two, a major pricing
Okay.
event or a contraction. Let's say you've gone from 7 days to 5. We've gone in right away. We said, let's just go in right away. Let's give it a try. People treat us like we're the PR department or the customer service desk of the newspaper. They're really not in a mind to buy. People love their local newspaper. They love their subscriptions and they take them very seriously. But some customers, when they've been pushed to the edge, all they can do is vote with their pocketbook. And they say, I'm done with you. And they say that. I'm
Yep.
done with you people, right? I've heard that over and over and over again when I was on the other side of it. But they all come back for the most part. Maybe 10% don't come back. But even when they're stopped, this was part of some other research we did a while ago, is they're still engaged with the brand somehow, some way. A newsletter, maybe they're buying single copy, they're reading us online, they're checking in. We hate to say checking in on social media because there's all kinds of bad
Mm-hmm.
things connotated with news on social media. But I
Yep.
would say if it's the newspaper brand social media page, maybe that's better. But yeah, they are in some way connected. And that's why waiting maybe 2 to 3 months before we come in, because there's a lot of work to do winning those folks back. And I'd say if you don't hire us to win those customers back who you lost 90 days ago, then have some other plan to do it. But certainly it's one call, it's one contact, it's one invoice. Like you don't have a million sales channels and a million different forms of budget going out.
Right.
It's one contact, and we do very well. Our numbers show enrolling households that have never subscribed, and that's always that's always one of the prizes in acquisition. Is really simple to go out and win back former subscribers, but what about new subscribers? What have you done for me lately? And
Right.
because we are touching such a wide swath of the market, when we're at a county fair or a Walmart or a supermarket, we don't really know who we're talking to, but we're finding a third of the time our enrollment is with households that have never subscribed. So yeah, just a few things we've learned over the years about that particular sales channel.
Yeah, it's super interesting. Very cool. Okay. Want to take off the consultant, I guess, whatever you hat, and put back on the publisher hat for a minute, if that's cool. Back to Decorah News. Um, you kind of gave me a pretty good rundown. It's a uh, digital first. There's digital only, right? Publication. Um, I got to ask the question I ask everybody because it's 2026 and it's on every single podcast ever. Is about AI.
Oh,
I'd
sure.
love to get. I like getting everybody's take on it because what's your overall take, and are you guys using any tools? Like, how do you view it? Because I get a lot of varying opinions on this on
Yeah.
the show.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
maybe we ought to cue this segment of the podcast. It's been sponsored by OpenAI. Back to you, Paul. No, yeah. Yeah, we like AI. There's definitely some productive elements of it. There's certainly a lot of fear mongering going on with it, especially in terms of ethics and transparency in the news business. We certainly obviously don't like the idea of AI taking our content, rewriting it in a human voice, and
Right.
dropping it at the very top of an AI prompt. We know that the number of AI inquiries are growing daily, and it seems like they're almost growing exponentially. So that is something that we're very, very concerned with. Although we know that our relationship with search, and I'm looking at my stats from last year, Paul, and DecorahNews.com appeared in search 7.4 million times. So I'll call it 7.5 million times. So we feel that yeah, we potentially have a lot to lose if we don't keep our eye on what AI or how AI might be interacting with our brand online. Now, the other side of it is how can we use AI to make our business more effective, save money, or do workflows more efficiently?
Mm-hmm.
And we don't do anything with it on the news side. And
Right.
again, I know there's consultants going around the country talking about, you need to have an AI policy, and if you write something with AI, you have to disclose it. And I believe all that to be true. It just is not a barrier that we've crossed yet, right? So we don't give the disclosures because we're not using AI. Now, on the marketing side, in terms of marketing our business, selling advertising, those workflows where we're writing ad copy, sales copy, maybe sales
Mm-hmm.
scripts, yes, we will use AI with that and use it to generate a rough draft. And then from there, our team takes it and we massage it and put it into something that makes even more sense than what AI has generated for us. But so we use it on the marketing side, but we don't use it in the newsroom.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely have people on the same boat. Almost nobody. I think I've had one or two people who say they do use it for writing some content, but the overwhelming majority of news publishers are staying way away from that. At least in its current
Yeah,
connotation. It's so like ChatGPT or whatever. It's just so wrong sometimes. Is I have a GPT that helps me write up show notes for this podcast where I upload the transcript. I'm like, hey, tell me what happened. And I've been doing it for months and months and months, a year maybe. And the other day, it just completely hallucinates. It says, today on the local industry news show, Paul, and then it gave me like a wrong last name. I'm like, this is not the name of my podcast or my name. It's like, oh, sorry about that. You're right to catch that. I'm like, oh my God. I can't believe people are actually using this to write stuff without checking it.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But anyway, yeah, good stuff.
yeah,
We're coming up on time here in a few minutes, but another question I've been liking to just try to run through everybody is, local news industry's had its struggles over the last couple decades. I think the narrative isn't entirely justified, that it's dying or done or whatever. The interest is still there. Where do you see it headed in the next 5 years on kind of a macro level, and then also like for Decorah News and your other businesses? Because you said it
yeah.
kind of an interesting kind of intersection of all of it. So I'd like to hear that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, certainly in my professional life, I realize there's a certain amount of hedging that goes on in the industry. On one hand, newspaper subscription services is really busy helping our clients manage the decline of print by great solutions to help prevent churn, help prevent stops, provide them other solutions. We've got another business where we're generating basically a new throttle with kiosking to drive um, about now we're writing about 20% of our order mix is digital only too, Paul. It's not like
Hmm.
it's 100% print. And that number has steadily been growing over the last short little while. I remember, we were lucky to get 5% of our order mix is digital, and now we're to around 20%. So
Wow.
I think that needs to be telling us something as well.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
right. But as it relates to our local publishing business in Northeast Iowa, um, I believe if we stay true to a local and we're creative enough by asking our readers, hey, what are we missing? Like you've been reading us for years, like what are we missing? And staying open-minded about it. And you got to remember that I entered the business before the millennium change, 97, in the last 1,000 years is when I started my career. When you walked into a newsroom, things had to be done in a certain way. There were probably a lot of good reasons for that, but it was in a day where newspapers, they couldn't screw up. Like they could be the resource, they could be a little uppity, they could be a little bit like fatherish, if you're to put a persona to it. And this is good because I say it is. Newspapers were doing political endorsements. Some still do. We don't. We do not endorse campaigns or politics. We will let people reflect their viewpoints, and we do that in our letters to the editor and our columns. But we won't endorse candidates as an editorial team. So what I think I'm trying to say here is I'm okay with bending the rules, maybe even breaking them in some cases, uh, if it relates to our audience becoming more engaged with us, but it still gives us enough oxygen to continue our mission to publishing, to being, the exclusive source for local news in and around Decorah, Iowa. I believe if we can do that and we can use the tools available in the digital publishing space, like podcasts, like newsletters, like recycling content on social media, like everything we can do on our site to get people deeper and deeper and deeper into the website and keeping them on the website longer and longer. Like I'd love to talk to the producers of True Crimes, that podcast we just talked about, because
Hmm.
how the heck do you get someone to sit on your brand for 2 hours? I
Yep.
mean, they've figured it out. So that's sort of what I think about is like, what lessons can we learn from outside the news business? We are essentially a streaming product now. We went from we were really born out of the print or radio world when it comes to news, and now we're more of a streaming service. And then ultimately, I believe our success also has to do, we have to remain focused on how can we add value to our readers' lives. And then if we do that successfully, do we have a right to ask something of them? Like public radio, public television do in terms of, hey, could you remember us with a $10 per month thing out of your checking account? Or could we count on you to be a bronze sponsor and kick us $100 a year? It's like, my God, you just told me you're on my site every day. I don't charge you a penny for it. And yet, I've got six-figure payroll that I've got. That's a big nut to crack every year. That money comes
Right.
from somewhere. Yes, it comes from advertising, but we're putting a lot of pressure on our ad business to provide something to the rest of the world that's totally free.
Hmm.
Now, what a pundit will say, yeah, but you need that content to drive that audience to get those advertising dollars. Yes, that's true. However, it also has value to the readers. And I know it does because they tell me in surveys. Much like I think, did you talk to the Isthmus yesterday? I didn't catch your
I did.
podcast.
I did.
Yeah,
That's who I
that's
talked
what
to.
I thought when you
I
said
hasn't gone out
Madison.
live.
Yep.
Hasn't gone out live. I just
Yeah.
talked to him
Yeah,
yesterday.
yeah, 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 yeah. So yeah, they're one of the funding models that we're following closely. Is
Hmm.
they've done a great job. I can't wait to hear the podcast. I don't know if you guys talked about what they're doing with membership and donations and contributions, but we kind of feel like that is a direction that we need to get a lot better at, so that so that we're around for a long, long time.
Yeah, that's. I'll let you know when that one comes out. I think I'm trying to remember his name. I've had a ton of Jason Joyce, the publisher over there, is who I
Oh
had
yeah,
on, and yeah,
yeah,
he talked about that stuff. He was great.
yeah.
I always loved talking to people from Iowa, Wisconsin, everything. I always get along with you guys real well.
Well, we're so
Anyway,
nice and friendly.
I know, right? It's great. Alon, this is awesome. I do have to hop off in a minute here, and you sent me a bunch of stuff that I'll link to. But if you want to say it also, where people can find you, I'll do the LinkedIn, your email, your website, all that. But
Yeah,
anything
yeah, yeah.
else you want to promote or anything put out there? Yeah.
Yeah, no. I mean, certainly open to chat with anyone. Whether it's about the local publishing business, if we can help. If you're a newspaper professional or executive, and you'd like to, take a look at solutions to grow your print or digital subscription base, that's kind of where our other two businesses come in. So, and you'll share how
Yep.
people can contact. Okay.
I'll have all those links, so you can just
Okay.
scroll down and click on them
Yep.
if you're interested. And yeah, go check them out. Go give them a call, like we said a few times. Thanks, man. This was awesome. Thanks for coming on. Hope you have a great day.
All right. Thanks, Paul. It's been a
Yep.
blast.